our Chai Mitzvah tutorial on equanimity, Menuchat HaNefesh, or rest of the soul. The word equanimity comes from the Hebrew word for rest, menucha. Menuchat HaNefesh literally means rest of the soul. It's one of the three values of Shabbat, along with oneg, rejoicing, and kedusha, holiness. Having a Shabbat practice can actually help us in building a practice of equanimity of mind and soul. In this tutorial, we'll look at a few Mussar texts from the great masters. The Mussar masters that felt that being able to cultivate Menuchat HaNefesh was key to developing a spiritual life. It formed the core in their mind. If you think about it, symptoms of a soul that is not at rest or that is not calm might be being reactive, making rash decisions, being indecisive, being ungrateful, and worrying excessively. Let's take a look at text 1. Text 1 says, rise above events that are inconsequential, both bad and good, for they are not worth disturbing your equanimity. Several points for conversation follow, and I've selected the second one to look at, although all are worthy of attention and discussion in your group. The question asks participants to assess their own ability to rise above events that are inconsequential. In other words, do you tend to sweat the small stuff? This is a personal question, and one that could be addressed by breaking your group into chevta partners or into triples so that people can share. After sharing with a partner, people can then return to the full group for a discussion and group sharing. As a closer to the conversation and sharing in this text, the last conversation point is a great one for a wrap-up. It says, other than calm, cool, or collected, what is a word you'd use to describe someone who has equanimity? A quick go-around soliciting descriptive words would be a great closing exercise before moving on to the next text. I'd also like to take a look at text 2, another of my favorite texts for this lesson. Text 2 asks, what is the foundational midah without which we can't have a good character? Equanimity. A person who has mastered peace of mind has gained everything. The first conversation point I'd like to look at asks, what is your personal definition of good character? And this is a great question for group discussion. While it asks our opinion, it doesn't require personal disclosure, and so is a safe question to continue the discussion of equanimity with. Remember, you might not get any volunteers to step up right off the bat, but be patient before you as a facilitator jump into the discussion. Sit with the quiet and see if someone offers a response. And then, if not, you can always initiate discussion by offering your own comment and then soliciting people to contribute again. The second bullet point asks, what might equanimity have to do with good character? It's interesting to see how people respond to this, given the fact that we've spent much time talking about and reflecting on how we actually define good character. And the third bullet point asks us to choose our own foundational midah, or trait, that underlies good character. What is the foundational midah, the basis upon which good character is built? This question, along with the previous discussion question, gets people to think about why a person might not have good character without equanimity. And this is a great bridge toward question in text number 3. Please look at text 3, which is my favorite text to study, and it is a text from Alan Moranis' book, Everyday Holiness. Alan Moranis is the director of the Mussar Institute, and has written many texts and teaches many courses on Mussar. His book says, tranquility doesn't spell the end of our spiritual struggles, it's the inner quality that equips us to handle them. The previous text and its conversation points serve as a great segue to this text and its discussion points. We look at how we can put that inner quality there that gives us the skill set to deal with all the rocky struggles that we experience in our lives. Something to really devote some time and discussion with. What in our lives tend to make us unsettled? And in addition to equanimity, what other midot, what other qualities would be useful? Maybe patience, maybe humility, perhaps faith. We know that a discussion of these questions with a chavruta would be a safe way for disclosure in an initial conversation before proceeding to sharing in a large group. It's a good way to address these conversation points that do call upon us for personal reflection and sharing. Finally, I'd like to look at text 6, which comes from Psalm 23. It says, God leads me beside still waters, and is a wonderful closing text. It is a text that many of us may have heard at funerals throughout our lifetime, as it's integrally part of a funeral service. Participants are now called upon for some personal disclosure, if they wish. The questions are several and run into each other in giving the answers for discussion. What do still waters represent for you? How does your soul achieve a state of rest? How can you tell when your soul is in a state of balance or rest? And what can you do to help achieve this state of balance within yourself? A combination of chavruta sharing and large group sharing, or possibly, depending on how much time you have, maybe just a large group sharing and summary wrap-up would be optimal for this last text. Our practices section comes at the end of each of our Chai Mitzvah Mussar lessons and suggests a variety of individual practices to extend our practice of menuchat hanefesh in this case. A favorite practice of mine is the last one, which is an embodied practice. It asks us to be like a mountain, constant and unreactive in our stance. Even if you are facilitating a virtual group, you can ask participants to stand in their own homes and assume this pose. As you can see, there is a link to a guide and a wonderful picture in our curriculum guide depicting how this pose is done. People could be encouraged to try this pose and take turns or do it as a group, and in a virtual class, to have everyone stand and do it at the same time. People could be encouraged to practice this practice once or more during a day for a period of time and see how it feels, and then can report back to the group at the large next meeting if it worked for them. They can share in the large group at the opening before you enter the next lesson. Good luck as you move forward with this lesson.